Congresswoman Underwood as well will be joining us. Lots to talk about. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, the race for the White House.
The race for the White House. It's all yours, Bill. So they take it away, Blake.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you. Great show. Appreciate it. Tonight here on the Hill, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, and your money. Her advisor starting to drop hints that she's barely going to unveil economic details as Republicans are pleading with Trump to stick to just that.
We will rapidly drive prices down and make America affordable again. We're going to make it affordable again.
By the way, did you see the numbers that came out today? Did we just possibly beat inflation, or is the damage done? The new numbers that are just out on who this country trusts and who is leading the race. Also tonight, a major headline regarding Hunter Biden. Could this be the beginning of a pardon process for the first son? Come on in. Thanks for joining us here on The Hill. You are watching the most politically unpredictable show on all of television. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. "83 days until the November 5th election, and while we have learned over the last month that nothing is really a guarantee in this race, here's possibly the closest thing to it. How you feel about your finances and the economy will have a major say in who is the next president of the United States. Tonight, Donald Trump is trying to hammer issue number one, the economy and inflation.
Kamala has declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority. Just think of it for her, but day one for Kamala was 3.5 years ago. Why hasn't she done it?
All right, so here's where we are and here's where we've been. Today, we learned inflation over the past year hit 2.9%. That is the first time it's been under 3% since March 2021. Today, President Biden suggested he feels vindicated and said this when asked if we've beaten inflation.
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
Now, no matter who you are, right, left, middle politically, rich, poor, anything in between, it doesn't matter. Inflation coming down is great news, period. But it's not period, end of story. After trillions of dollars were printed during COVID, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, trying to cool an overheated economy. Interest rates then rose by roughly 5% as a result. So now, as inflation is coming down, here's the aftershocks, or at least some of them. Americans owe a record $1.14 trillion on their credit card. That is a record. 9% of credit card holders, for example, have balances that have now transferred into delinquency. Chapter 11 bankruptcies, talking about businesses here, are up 15% this year, and housing affordability hasn't been this bad in decades. We can tell you tonight that the Vice President, Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee, will lay out her own vision on inflation on Friday, just a couple days from now. However, as the New York Times reports, advisors are expecting her economic message to be, quote unquote, light on detail. We'll get to the vice president and what you can expect from her later in the week here on The Hill. But we begin tonight with Donald Trump on issue number one, trying to get on message and if he can do just that. Congressman Ryan Zinke is a Republican from the state of Montana. You might also remember him as the Interior Secretary in the Trump administration. Congressman Zinke, thanks for being with us here on The Hill. Appreciate it. So we heard from Donald Trump today, an economic speech, an economic message. I remember going to the last one of these in 2016 when he was then candidate Trump, right? And he talked about the economy. It was the economy. Don't you just wish, Congressman, right now he would talk about the economy, the border, and nothing else?
Well, I like it when he does because he has a track record of success. Clearly, gasoline prices were hovering around 2. Energy, we weren't beholden to third parties and nations that hate us for energy needs. And, the inflation was controlled. Housing prices were affordable. So the policies of Donald J. Trump work. We've seen that over and over again. And yes.
So why doesn't he just talk about why doesn't he just talk about those congressmen? Because, for example, here was the former president earlier today, again, on an economic speech. He said this. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Heard that laugh in about a week. That's why they keep her off the stage. That's why she's disappeared. That's the laugh of a crazy person, I will tell you, if you haven't known her. It's a crazy. She's crazy.
You want her talking about him talking about Kamala Harris like that?
Well, I don't disagree with his assessment, but having said that, it's Donald J. Trump. If you think you can keep Donald J. Trump within script, good luck. And that's part of his brilliance as well as his Achilles heel. You had to have a guy that's enormous amount of energy and delivers policy and does what he says. Although sometimes when he gets off script, who knows? But personally, I think this is a movement. I think that this election is even bigger than Donald J. Trump, as big as Donald J. Trump is. This is a movement, and I can't think of two candidates or two tickets that are further apart on the issues.
So no concern when he does stuff like that. Like, I hear you, Congressman, there say about the issues, and that's what I'm getting at. I wonder if you just think, and I hear you that no one can control him, right? And we know that. We've learned that over the last decade. But if you could talk to him, if you would tell him, would you say, Mr. President, just stick to the border and the economy?
Well, I love sticking to the issues because I think it's something you can win at. But by the end of the day, I work for him a lot. And this is Donald J. Trump. He is unpredictable, but he does listen and he does learn. And as a boss, he was magnificent. He gives people a lot of latitude, as he did me. And look, we fixed the energy. We fixed our parks. We fixed our forests. On energy and environment, there was no one better. So on policies, you're right. There is no one better than Donald J. Trump. On policies, I can't think of a worse combination between Biden, Harris, and Walz, and they're really one of three. They're all singing the same message. But you're right. A distraction sometimes is the message when off the page too far.
Okay. You also served alongside Nikki Haley. Here's what she said last evening. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
The campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. You can't win on those things.
Is she right or wrong there, Congressman?
Well, I can tell you, I respect Nikki Haley a lot, and she has a lot to offer, and her points are true, is that Nikki Haley reaches very well in those non-Trump voters, so, moms in suburbia that want stability, that care about, the issues that they care about. And Nikki Haley has a lot to say, and I hope her influence is taken. I hope her advice is taken, because I think she has a big part of the Republican Party and a big part, by the way, in winning this race.
All right, Congressman Ryan Zinke, Republican, Montana, former Interior Secretary. Thank you for the time, sir. Hope you come on back.
You're very welcome. God bless.
All right, joining me today here on the Hill throughout the hour, Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor as well. Denise Gitsham, NewsNation contributor. Linda Tran is a former senior advisor to Pete Buttigieg. And Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist, NewsNation contributor as well. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. Appreciate it. Nikki Haley, you know her well.
Heard of her, yes.
You have heard of her. Is she right there?
A little bit, yes. What I thought Ryan was going to say, what Zinke was going to say was she's really good at talking to the non-Trump voters, but can't talk to the Trump voters. You can't sort of cut it both ways. She lost in the primary to Donald Trump, so she clearly doesn't have the entire message. Is everybody saying the same thing, that Trump should talk on policies? Yes. If this race turns into a race about policies, I think Trump's got a really, really good chance to win. If the race stays where I think it is right now, which is a race about personalities, he's got a really, really good chance of losing.
We're going to brand new numbers on that front. We're going to get to that later in the show. You speak about policies. Here was Donald Trump earlier today at this rally talking about the Affordable Care Act. Listen.
I'm going to keep the Affordable Care Act unless we can do something much better. We'll keep it. It stinks. It's not good. If we can do something better, we're going to do something with it. If we can do better, meaning less expensive and better health care for you.
I didn't hear that message in 2015. I heard we were going to repeal, replace. They tried. They didn't. And now he's saying ACA, it's here.
Well, both he and Kamala Harris are doing what they have to do to win this election, which is to appeal to voters that they need to have on board in order to get over the finish line. The problem is nobody really understands what they stand for anymore. And that's true whether you're, whatever side of the aisle you're on. I think the issue for Donald Trump needs to be not just focusing on, principled positions, which he's proven that he's not that principled about, but focusing on exactly what Nikki Haley said. And, I don't understand why you can't be good at the policy and the politics and the personality, because you're going to need to have all three and bring your A game. This is a real race now.
Former budget director, I'm going to get you in a second on inflation. I heard President Biden today essentially spike the football on the number one issue, inflation. Let's be very clear. A soft landing, as he put it, is not about one metric or any one metric. It is about a lot of things happening all together. Is he wrong to say, yes, we beat inflation and we're done, everything's good, soft landing? Don't worry about it. We're all good.
Well, I think you have to juxtapose that with the fear-mongering we have heard from the right about inflation for the better part of the year. And as it turns out, as the data comes in, he's actually gaining ground on inflation. Contrast that, we want to talk about policy, to Donald Trump's policies. We've had 16 Nobel laureates come out and say that Trump policy will lead to an inflation bomb.
You know that's campaign.
We know that Moody's said inflation will go up to 3.6% under the Trump inflation policies. Taxes will go up on 90% of Americans under the Trump policies. So the reason why Donald Trump stays away from policy is because when you dig into the details of his policy, they're a catastrophe for most of America.
Is it a mistake for the president to say, we're done, all good?
I don't think he was really saying we're done, all good. I think he was calling out the fact that the number one attack line that we've been hearing over the past several months has started to soften up a bit. I mean, I think the other piece that Democrats are consistent about is that while you may see better economic indicators, what really matters is what people are feeling at home, how they feel about their own personal finances. And on that front, I think we all agree there's more work to do.
Prices are up all across the board, right? Again, to be clear, it's what everybody wants to see inflation drop, right? But it's like you win the game, but a lot of your team is injured, right? And now you got to figure out what happened and how do you move forward. I wonder where you think, Mick, this is going forward, where we are right now.
To my friend Kurt, keep in mind that those same 16 Nobel Prize laureates said that inflation was transitory, which I guess is right if 3 years is transitory. But look, what's the target for inflation? Does anybody know?
2%.
What is the 2%? Where are we? 3%. If we had gone from 1% to 3%, and we did a 3% for 4 quarters, the Fed would be talking about raising rates.
That's right.
Yes, it's better this month than it has been. There's no question. And this is actually the number that it's even a little bit better once you add food and energy. But 3% is still above the target.
All right. And one of the things that we're going to be watching for is it's almost a guarantee that the Fed will be cutting rates in September, which could give the Democratic nominee a talking point going forward. We'll see. All right, still to come here from the Hill. Are we getting clues that a pardon, maybe a commutation, could be around the corner for Hunter Biden? A big story dropping about a big request that he had. That information made public just 5 days, just 5 days after President Biden dropped out of the race. So why all this now? Jesse Weber joins us, Mick, with his insights on this process as well. Plus, the new number that should have both sides cheering and both sides worried. We're breaking down the state of the race and Elon Musk. Did you see what he did now? This viral AI video of him and Trump dancing has taken off. Plus, the Harris campaign caught in a different kind of act. What is going on when the Hill returns? All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. New questions tonight over Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. The Biden administration releasing new records showing that Hunter Biden asked government officials for help getting a potentially lucrative energy deal when his father was vice president at the time. The New York Times reporting in part, quote, Hunter Biden wrote at least one letter to the U.S. ambassador in Italy in 2016 seeking assistance for the Ukrainian gas company Burisma, where he was a board member. Now, the State Department released the documents just days after Joe Biden, President Biden, dropped out of the race, just within days, but not without a fight. The Times had been fighting the Biden administration, the State Department in this case, in court for years. All of this as Hunter Biden is preparing to stand trial next month for federal tax evasion charges. President Biden, when asked about this earlier this year, said he would not pardon his son.
I'm not going to do anything. I said I'd abide by the jury decision. I will do that.
and I will not pardon him.
As you might imagine, the White House earlier today was asked about this and doubled down on what the president initially said.
I can speak for the president, and he said he would not pardon his son, and I'm just going to leave it there.
Joining us now, NewsNation legal contributor, host of the Law and Crime Network, Jesse Weber. Jesse, hello. Thanks for being back here on the show.
Good to see you.
Look, this story, great to see you. So the story comes out from the New York Times last night, and I'm thinking to myself, are they just getting all the dirt, all the really icky things on Hunter Biden out now before a pardon is coming? Because I do not think there is a single parent in this country who doesn't believe that President Biden would pardon his own child.
Oh, I can 100% agree with you. I didn't believe it when he made the comment. And I don't know, call me a cynic, but, and this is all due respect to the president. I mean, he also said he would never drop out of the race unless there was a heavenly act, unless you consider Nancy Pelosi a heavenly act. So I think when you're dealing with his son, there was no grounds. I think he was looking to win the election and then ultimately have a pardon here. Look, I think at the end of the day, that's probably what we're looking at. And why we see the release of this now, there's been reporting that the New York Times, as you said, have been looking to get this release for a while, that they got the sign-off from but they got the sign-off from the Biden administration even before he stepped down, which, again, the timing of it's curious. People will make of it what they will. But what I will tell you, Blake, when I read the headline today, you know what I wasn't? I wasn't surprised. Because this is another example of Hunter Biden trading in on the Biden name and using that position for personal benefit. I don't necessarily think it's a crime, but it's definitely morally dubious. That's clear.
Okay, so not a crime. Here's what Abby Lowell, Hunter Biden's attorney, said about this. Quote, no meeting occurred, no project materialized, no request for anything in the U.S. was ever sought, and only an introduction in Italy was requested. You say this was not a crime. The Department of Justice has not pursued him with charges of potentially being a foreign agent. But I don't know, Jesse, as the average person, I sit back and say, wait a minute. He's trying to get the United States government to do something on behalf of another country. How do you not need to register as a foreign agent for something like that?
I actually think what came out a few days ago was worse, where he was trying to advocate on behalf of a Romanian businessman to alter U.S. policy, basically. And that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about a FARA violation, having to register as a foreign agent, it's when you're doing the political bidding of a foreign government or a foreign principal. Now, there's an exemption, and Abby Lowell also mentioned this. If you are just engaging in commercial activity, if you're just engaging in business, if you're not being directed by a foreign government, if you're not directly serving the interests of a foreign government, then FARA doesn't apply. And you could say, he's sitting on the board of a Ukrainian energy company controlled by an Ukrainian oligarch. But at the end of the day, just asking for an introduction, I don't think that necessarily rises to the level where he would have to register as a foreign agent. So again, my conclusion, I don't think it's illegal. I think it's definitely morally dubious.
Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor. Jesse, talk to you soon. Thanks, buddy.
Talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
You got it. Several of us are parents. There's not a parent in this country who doesn't think that Joe Biden's going to do what is going to pardon his son. Every parent in this country would do the exact same thing. I think that's fair to say. When I saw the story last night, Mick, I thought to myself, as I mentioned to Jesse, are they just starting to lay the groundwork for this process? And you know it as a White House chief of staff. What is the process? Where do you think this goes? If Donald Trump wins, what does that mean?
This comes down to a really interesting question that goes all the way back to Nixon. When Ford pardoned Nixon, he pardoned him for things that he had not been convicted of. Before that, everybody sort of thought pardons only applied to convictions. No one challenged it because we all wanted to move on from Watergate, right? By the way, for ancient history, some of us actually remember this. But there's a real risk that if Joe Biden tries to pardon Hunter Biden for stuff he's not convicted of, and Donald Trump wins the election, then Donald Trump could tell his Department of Justice not to not to follow the pardon. So my guess is, and it's an uneducated guess, you're going to see a lot more of this, and you're going to see Hunter Biden plea to a bunch of different stuff before his dad. It
is an educated guess, but he talked about a lot of things. Hillary Clinton, lock her up. There were all those chances, and then he won, and nothing happened. So
true.
Is that also...
The point of the matter is, if you're the Biden team, why run the risk? And why not just go ahead and have him plead? We're going to give you the pardon, plead guilty, get pardoned. That way it's put to bed entirely.
Yeah. Mark Garagos hired here, one of the most well-known, famous TV attorneys. What do you think's going on?
This is definitely not my area of expertise.
What's going on?
Oh, I agree with you. I think that they're kind of getting everything out there, laying the groundwork so that we don't run into a separation of powers, constitutional crisis, depending on who wins the election. I also think one of the things that's different versus 2016 for Trump is he has now gone through an exhaustive and extensive legal process where he has been the target of investigations, and I think that has changed how he might look at it. If he had gone through that process in 2016, he probably may have gone after Hillary. Now that this has happened to him, he would feel very vindicated in saying, I was unfairly targeted by justice. I'm going to get my vengeance.
Should Republicans in this town feel vindicated?
They seem to. They did drop that tweet that said, told ya. I think that a lot of things are coming out that we have been saying as Republicans for a long time. The question is, how much do we care anymore? Joe Biden's no longer really the target. I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty of us who want to see justice seen through. But at this point, the target's shifted to Kamala Harris. And so I really wonder how much of that desire.
I still hear President Trump talking about Joe Biden all the time. You want it to shift to Kamala Harris.
Most of us know that's not a winning strategy.
Right.
Well, I do think. Go ahead, Nick.
I also wonder if Nancy Pelosi didn't sort of trot this out in front of Biden when she was
saying it without saying it.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? One of the things you can do if you drop out of the race is pardon your son, which you couldn't do if you're still running.
Well, and I think one of the things that we're all going to be looking at too, though, is Joe Biden. He prides himself on being a man of integrity. For them to forcefully go out there and say, I am not doing this and I'm doubling down on it, I'm just saying Joe Biden is not a known liar. And
Republicans might have a word on that.
I'm saying, as his brand has been a person of integrity.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Still much more ahead here on the Hill. Kamala Harris about to deliver her first policy speech this week, arguably one of the most important topics of the election. But will she offer her own economic solution? Or will she align with President Biden? What we are hearing ahead of the big speech, the first of its kind for the Democratic nominee. Stay with us here on the Hill. Back in a few. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. 83 days until the biggest day of them all in politics. And tonight, we're getting a better sense of what we might hear from Vice President Harris when she lays out her economic vision on Friday. But it could be more cliff notes than crash course. We are told here at NewsNation that she will lay out her own vision on inflation. Now, the own part is important. I want to run you through some headlines here today to explain what's happening as Harris's strategy starts to take shape. It began earlier this morning with Axios. And this headline here about how Harris wants to, quote unquote, redefine herself. They said Harris will unapologetically change some of her liberal positions. And then there's this, quote, Harris won't say it bluntly in public, but her advisors do so privately. She wants to break with Biden on issues on which she's unpopular. For example, as our partners at thehill.com report, even Democrats were caught off guard when she supported Trump's no tax on tips policy. I'm telling you right now, one of the Democrats here on the panel shaking their head. We'll see, though, if the vice president brings that up in Friday's speech, which the New York Times report is going to be, quote unquote, light on detail. And would you look at this? From Reuters today, Harris aides say her energy policy is strategically ambiguous. The White House today asked if Vice President Harris is backing away from President Biden.
Do you know this is the Biden-Harris administration? Are you aware that this is the Biden-Harris administration? And she is indeed the vice president.
Joining us now, Congresswoman, Democrat from the state of Illinois, Lauren Underwood. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. First time on the show, I believe, so thanks for joining. Doesn't she owe the American public, of course, doesn't she or any candidate running for office owe the American public detail on policy, especially like how much you're going to pay in taxes?
Well, I think we've heard a lot of detail from Vice President Harris since she launched her campaign in July. Absolutely, in front of sold out crowds. I mean, these rallies have been packed. She's outlined her agenda around expanding opportunity and defending freedoms and lowering costs for the American people. And they have responded enthusiastically. And so I think that this speech on Friday is yet another opportunity for Vice President Harris to share her positions, her accomplishments with the American people. And I'm certainly looking forward to the speech.
I mean, to be clear, and I was there in 2016, Congresswoman, Donald Trump, Detroit Economic Club, he talked about lowering tax brackets from 7 to 3, laid out the rates. Whether you thought it was great policy or awful or anything in between, at least you knew where he stood. And we haven't heard that yet from the vice president. And I wonder if just the strategy here is to let Trump talk.
Well, I think President Trump has done a lot of talking. Some of it has been incoherent. He's obviously been confused at his latest press conferences, and that the chaos and extremism that characterized his time in the White House has certainly been on full display.
So she needs to redefine herself, or plans to redefine herself. Axios. Reuters headline is strategically ambiguous. If you're a presidential candidate and you need to redefine yourself and your policy is purposely ambiguous, is that the best candidate in your party? I mean, we know how this all came together, and I just wonder if she's actually the best one.
Well, without a doubt, Kamala Harris has incredible momentum. She has really, in a few weeks, consolidated support from Democrats and independent voters who were not enthusiastic about this election. And that's what we see reflected in the polls, where she is leading in key battleground states. And so
do you think policy could hurt her?
Excuse me?
Do you think policy could hurt her?
No, she's vice president of the United States. And she is prepared and capable, and she is ready to tackle the most important challenges facing the American people, which do include lowering costs for hardworking American families.
All right, Congressman Lauren Underwood, a Democrat from the state of Illinois. We hear there's a big thing going on in your home state next week, the DNC, of course, where we'll hear from Kamala Harris herself. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us here on The Hill. Appreciate it. All right, so on Friday, Vice President Harris will pitch voters on her plans for the economy. It comes as new polling shows she continues to trail the former president, Donald Trump, on the key issue. But new swing state polling is setting off alarm bells, I guess you could say, for the Trump campaign. So follow me here for a second. This is where, if this is going to be an issues election, right, we know the two big issues. It's the economy and it's immigration. Look at the numbers. This is a brand new poll from AP. Donald Trump, +7 on the economy. When it comes to immigration, Donald Trump is +10, right? So if you think this is going to be an issues-based election, it's advantage Trump, at least right now. But what about if it's not? What about if it's just pure feel, pure vibes? The electorate says, you know what, we just want someone new, and we want someone who we like and who we believe in. If it's an election or a candidate who cares about people like you, who do you support? Or someone who is honest? Look at these numbers here. It is +12 for Harris, +19 for her when it comes to honesty. So again, Trump's there on the issues. She's there essentially on the feels and on the vibes and how people think about these two. Okay, so what about the numbers, Blake, right? Like, where do we stand in the race? Let's get to them here for a second. There is some new polling out, the Cook Political Report, and my goodness, look at how things have changed. May, Trump, Biden, Trump all red, right? And then one that was tied. Then here's August in the recent days. Harris. That's 5. She leads in 5, tied in 1, Trump +3, only in Nevada. So you might think Kamala Harris has got this thing running away, right? That's your takeaway from all this. Then I saw the Washington Post polling averages earlier today, and I said, wait a minute, look at what they have. When you take the average of a lot of these polls, Donald Trump is up in 4, actually really 5. This is tied, but he's up by point something. And Kamala Harris is up in 2 states. So how do you go from one poll today, she's up in 5 of the 7, but if you take the averages of recent, he's up in 5 of the 7. That's kind of where we are right now in this race. Mulvaney, what do you make of all this? What's your takeaway here?
The interview you just did with Congresswoman Underwood is what you're going to see a lot of in the coming weeks. There's no way that Kamala Harris is going to talk about anything specific. She shouldn't. She's winning. She should. When you're winning, usually the best advice is to sit down and shut up. But she's going to talk about what were the words she used? Opportunity, freedom. You might as well throw in some hope and change and aspirations. Okay. She's not going to give details. And when they ask, they follow-up questions about when are you going to do details, you hear exactly what the Congresswoman just said, which is, well, I just gave you the details. This is how the dance is going to do. And you do that as long as you are winning. If she starts to fall behind and feels like she needs to put some meat on the bone, she will. But until she starts to see different polling data, you are not going to see any specifics out of Kamala Harris. And it's the smart thing to do politically.
I mean, like, if she's rising,
yep.
The convention is next week. Theoretically, she should rise more. You could be talking about her on Labor Day. You don't think so?
No, I think she's already gotten the bump that traditionally you get from the convention.
Okay, so
just like Trump got the bump when he got.
Let's just say you're right
during the assassination,
and she comes out of it winning. I think we all agree. The polling out of that shows her in the lead. Is it smart for her to just kind of be, what was that, strategically ambiguous or whatever gobbledygook that is, Or does she owe us details?
I feel like we need to lift ourselves out of the DC bubble every now and again. And within the bubble, we want to talk about every last nitty-gritty detail. And I realize I'm sitting across from the man with all the details right here.
Nerd.
But out in the world, we just need the big picture values. Do people like her? I think that's what these poll numbers show, number one. And number two, just the headline. The headline message from the speech on Friday, from the major speeches that you'll hear all of next week, are really going to be fighting for working families, want to make your lives better.
You don't think people want to know what their tax bill is going to be, though?
I think if they want to know what their tax bill is going to be, that's not a good conversation for Donald Trump, because their taxes will go up for most of Americans.
They did go lower for most folks, whether you think it's right or wrong.
I think it's more about specificity about the issue that you're going to win on. I think that Republicans generally believe that if this race comes down to the economy and inflation, they have a better chance of winning. For Kamala Harris and Democrats, if this race is about issues like abortion or women's rights, they have a better chance of winning. You get specific about the things that you can win on. One of the interesting nuggets I saw in that Cook report that just came out was how back in May, Donald Trump had a huge advantage over the question of, are you more concerned about Joe Biden's economic policies or abortion policies? He was up 55-45. In this polling that just came out, when you ask that question now, it's actually only 49% to 51%. More people are concerned about Trump's abortion policies than Kamala Harris's economic policies.
Real quick, can you win this? Can Republicans win this race with those honesty and cares about me numbers?
They could, but this is the opportunity that Republicans have to actually define her. If they can take their opportunity that's just wide open and go for it, they can change the momentum.
Calling her crazy and stupid is not going to work.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
All right, coming up here on the Hill, eat healthy, sleep more. Sounds simple, right? Sign me up. Why military leaders, though, are giving that basic advice to troops serving our country. Our Anna Koyman joins us live on the other side of the break. Hello, Anna. Excited to have you on, Anna, and that story when the Hill returns.
Special guest Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
Cuomo O'Reilly is the best cable news exposition in America.
Toe to toe and TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
Appreciate you, Bill O'Reilly.
Tonight at 8/7 Central, only on NewsNation.
Ceasefire talks aimed at ending the Israel-Hamas war. The White House is still saying that Iran could launch retaliatory attacks on Israel as early as this week, and that they are preparing for it to be quote-unquote significant. Speaking to reporters yesterday, though, President Biden said Iran may push off its attack if a deal is reached. Now, despite the high stakes, Hamas officials are saying they will not take part, instead consulting with mediators afterwards. Meantime, another issue in the military, this one a weighty problem, quite literally. Nearly 70% of active service members tip the scales in our military as either overweight or obese. One solution now that is being proposed from a high-ranking military member is getting a lot of pushback. Anna Koyman, our NewsNation weekend anchor, joins us live. Anna, hello. What's going on here with this?
Well, I don't know if you're going to like this idea. There's a top leader at the Pentagon. He's got a radical idea. That idea is to ban fast food at military bases. And as you can imagine, it's not sitting well with everybody, right? So this idea of having to cut out cheeseburgers just in an effort to be, a fighting fit trooper, is this a good idea or not? So we heard from a top enlisted advisor for the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. He's arguing that, hey, it's time to get rid of Whoppers and Big Macs and Frosties. He was recently on a podcast and he argued that the best thing to do is just get rid of this altogether on military bases. Listen.
If you want to reduce obesity, serve different types of food at the chow hall. Remove immediately all fast food restaurants from all installations.
All right, so let's take a look at these numbers, if you will. Nearly 70%, 68%, that's 2 out of every 3 service members qualify as either overweight or obese. Now, Blake, what kind of startled me even more is that if you take a look at these numbers, it's how radically this trend is happening. Over a 10-year period between 2012 and 2022, obesity rates have more than doubled. It's a disturbing trend, and these numbers come to us from the Defense Department. Now, one argument, Blake, for keeping these is that the funding that comes in from fast food is actually something that helps to fund things that are extra, like pools and other training facilities, gyms and things that in theory would actually help to keep these military members fit. So if fast food goes away, who's going to foot the bill for things like that?
Yeah. One of the questions there. How about the pushback, Anna?
Well, as you can imagine, it's pretty strong from some. Many people think that, look, military members don't need to be told what to do. They should be able to eat what they want to eat. Now, it's yet to be seen whether the military will move to ditch fast food at military bases. This, of course, is something that's a personal view of someone there at the Pentagon. He was on a podcast talking about this. And on my weekend show, NewsNation Now, I'm trying to get him on to try to do an interview with him and hear some more of his thoughts.
She is Anna Koyman. She hosts several shows here on NewsNation on the weekend, including NewsNation Now. Anna, great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Catch you soon. There's a story that sticks with you here. I believe when you were a member of Congress, right? Or with the White House or Congress or
member of Congress. There was a Fort Jackson. It was in the state of South Carolina, and I was a congressman of South Carolina. I went to go tour. And the guy that was running the place told me that the number one reason that the young recruits were going into the infirmary was, and I'm not making this up, broken hips. This is 18, 19, 20-year-old men and women who are simply not physically capable of doing the work of being in the military anymore because of the sedentary lifestyle. We've banned recess at schools. Not a lot of people play sports. Not as many do anymore. It's a real problem. We had a report when I was in the White House, it said 77% of American youth could not qualify for the physical requirements of joining the military.
This was when you were in the White House just a few years ago.
Yeah, 2020. It's a real problem. Now, the part about having the fast food restaurants on the basis is true. It's called non-appropriated funds, and it goes to fund things like Little League Baseball and that kind of stuff. But that's a minor part of the military's budget.
By the way, did you happen to see this with Halloween on the horizon? The famed candy company Mars is adding new snacks to its arsenal. Mars announced it's acquiring Kellanova. That's a spin-off company from Kellogg that owns products like Cheez-Its, Pop-Tarts, Pringles, and more. The acquisition is part of a $36 billion deal, all cash, that will see the candy company expand its offerings to include snacks just in time for the holiday at the end of October. All right, still to come here on The Hill. Is the bromance growing between Elon Musk and Donald Trump? What this is all about. And have you seen what the Harris campaign is trying to do online? Tricks of its own. Keep it here. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Did you happen to see this? An AI-generated video posted by Donald Trump's mega billionaire donor, Elon Musk, showing himself dancing alongside Trump. In this post, Musk jokingly says, "Haters will say this is AI." It's already reached 42 million views on X. You got any issue with this? The left obviously is no fan of Elon right now.
No, I think it's weird, but okay, if that's your flavor, God bless.
Any issue with it?
No. I mean, it's like getting The Rock to post something about you on Instagram.
Okay. Can this help Trump?
Sure, why not? I mean, because my gut reaction is no, of course not. This could never help Donald Trump, but every time I say that about anything on Donald Trump, I'm wrong. So maybe it'll be great. I have no idea.
It's kind of wild because this is like the new world that we're in. It's the top of the first inning of AI.
Well, at least it's flattering for him, right? And it's better than what the Aussie breakdancer did at the Olympics. I'll give him that.
All right, then there's this headline, by the way. Have you seen this? Harris campaign's Google Ads rewrite new headlines. Harris campaign's Google Ads rewrite news headlines. There you go. The Harris campaign spent thousands of dollars rewriting headlines on sponsored Google Ads, all to make major publications appear that they are on her side. Now, they include headlines like these: Harris will lower health costs, and VP Harris's economic vision, lower costs and higher wages. So to be clear, these are not real headlines. They are real Google Ads with fake headlines.
I'm absolutely stunned that they have to rewrite the headlines, since most of these are from left-leaning outlets anyway. But
exactly.
In a little bit more seriously, I am serious about that, by the way. How is this not misinformation?
Right.
How is this not going to be illegal, for example, in the UK? Are they going to get in trouble if they take a British tabloid and change the name of the headline?
So those are fake. They only had to spend a couple $1,000 a piece. That makes it cheap. Are those cheap fakes?
Well, first of all, I think we should point out it does say sponsored on it, so it is very clear that it's an ad.
But how do people know that means I've changed it? If I put sponsored and it's above the Guardian UK, how does that tell an ordinary person, oh, by the way, I rewrote what they
Hey, if it ain't illegal and it helps you, do it.
There you go.
Yeah, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
When has any Republican ever abided by that, ever?
I think, well, a lot of us do, actually. And I think that when we talk about this deeper concerns of undermining faith in government, which Democrats talk about all the time, upholding democracy, there's nothing about the way that this campaign has been run that proves to me that that's something.
I live in a world where if you can do it, do it. And
I was going to say, just win, baby, right?
Just
the old
win,
Al
baby.
Davis. Like, is that what's going on here?
I mean, I'm going to chalk it up to them following the rules of the outlet and the medium that they chose to publish on.
Yeah. So again, it's not illegal, but there's questions about whether you.
I will say, if an outlet says please take that down, they should.
They should.
It would not be permitted on Facebook.
What outlet's going to make them take that down, Kurt?
One of those left-leaning outlets.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank y'all, by the way. Appreciate it. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Meantime, just 83 days away from the general election in November. Primary races, though, still underway, including one last night in Minnesota. While other members of the squad lost their elections this year, the congresswoman from that state, Ilhan Omar, held on to her spot, winning the Democratic nomination there. Now, the Minnesota primary also gives us a chance to say hello to our viewers in Arden Hills. That is a city in Ramsey County, more than 10 miles north of St. Paul. It has about 500,000 folks who live there. Arden Hills, don't you know, overwhelmingly went for President Biden in 2020, getting 72% of the vote there. The Democratic Congresswoman Betsy McCollum represents Arden Hills. Did you know that Arden Hills is also the home to the headquarters of Land O'Lakes, the butter company? To our viewers watching us on NewsNation or listening to us here on SiriusXM, from our hill to yours, hello in Arden Hills. Leland Vitter, host of On Balance. I was like, that's the Land O'Lakes. That's kind of cool.
There you go. News you can use.
News you can use. Big day tomorrow. I know you got your show coming up here. Big day tomorrow. You're going to have Donald Trump speaking at 4:30 right after Kamala Harris appears next to President Biden just down the road from us.
To celebrate their successes, they say. And it is interesting because we are hearing at the same time on Friday, Kamala Harris is going to try and separate herself somehow from Joe Biden and Joe Biden's policies. And that's been one of the great mysteries, right, which we're going to try to get into here in a minute or so. How has Kamala Harris pulled off not being associated with the Biden-Harris administration?
I got a feeling you're only going to hear her say Joe Biden twice, which is on Thursday